Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel, and today I'm going to be going through a list of 10 books that I predict I will be giving 5 stars. I'm so excited to go through this list today. I have 3 series, the first book in a series, and 7 standalones that I feel for some reason or another, which I'll explain when I go through them, that these will be 5-star reads for me. And in Books and Lala fashion, I hope to read these all within the next year or so and then give an update video at the end to see if these were really 5 stars. As like a preface, obviously there's more books on my shelf that I believe would be 5 stars, but I had pretty specific reasons that I picked these. And like I said, these are all backlist titles. None of these are new releases. I have no plans of reading new releases unless they really jump out to me or they're from an author that I really recently loved or a gift or anything like that. This year I really want to focus on my backlist and then get through some old series that I have, some old standalones, and also some standalones that I feel like not a lot of people talk about. So I would love to be that voice for the genres that I really like to read for books that you've never read before. Does that make sense? Anyway, I'm really excited to get through this list today. So I'm going to start off with the 3 series that I want to read the first book in, and then I'll move on to standalones. So without further ado, let's get into it. So starting off with a real classic, I have Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief by Rick Riordan. This is a series I've had, I think, for as long as I've been on BookTube at the very least, and before that this was like a huge series back in 6th grade, I think, and I think people even read it in elementary school, but I never got into it. I just never read it. I was a Twilight girl and never read Percy Jackson, but people were obsessed with it. Everyone told me to read it and I just never got around to it. So now I really want to read it as just like a nostalgic factor. I know the main character in this is 12 or 13, but I've seen the movies, they were bad. My friends have seen the Broadway play and they said they really loved it, and I'd love to maybe read this and see that at some point, or just read this and then read the series. And then there's tons of other Rick Riordan books that are set in this world or similar worlds, and I'd really love to read those as well in the future because I've heard nothing but good things about these books, even as like adults reading them. So this is the first on my list, and this is the one I'm definitely most excited for and most nervous because I would hate to not like these. The next series I have is because the last book in the series is coming out this year, and I'm making a real effort to read books that the series is completed, or it's going to be completed very soon, because I found that I much more enjoy reading full series together, because if not, then I'm going to have to reread them because it's going to bother me that I don't remember everything about the full series. And for that, I'm going to be reading The Diviners, and I predict that this would be 5 stars as well, which I guess I didn't really explain why I thought this would be 5 stars, but I think it's just like a classic, sort of like Harry Potter. Like Harry Potter, I wasn't sure I was gonna like, but it was so good and so pure that I loved it, and once I finish Harry Potter I would love to move on to another classic series. So that's why I predict I gave this 5 stars. Sorry about that. And for this, I feel like this has gotten a lot of hype, but it also fits a lot of boxes, and it's a genre that I don't typically get into, and I feel like whenever I first pick up a book in a new genre I really love it. So like A Court of Thorns and Roses was my first really take into sort of YA, new adult fantasy, like high fantasy, and I absolutely adored that series. And I don't know, like, was it just because that book was really good, or is it because that was my first real like dip into the toes of fantasy? So I'm excited to dip into this, which is like mystery horror. I don't know if it's like light on horror, but it's supposed to be like pretty scary. So I'm really excited for this. If you don't know what The Diviners is about, I'm pretty sure it's about this girl in the 1920s who moves to New York, and there's a serial murderer going around, and she kind of has some inside information, or she has like a power that would lead to her being able to find out who this man is. And this is a 4-book series, so this is pretty like thick, and this book is really like big and intimidating, but I've heard nothing but good things. I'm really excited about the genre itself because I'm trying to expand my horizons this year, and I feel like it could just be a really perfect book for me and open me up to a lot of new books in this genre. And finally, a book that I've had on my TBR forever, and a book that I really can't explain to you why I think will be 5 stars, but I've talked about this in multiple other videos in the past about how I thought I would absolutely adore this book, and that is The Winter's Curse by Marie Rutowski. This is kind of controversial now. When it first came out, I guess people weren't really thinking about the entire concept of this book. It essentially is a story of a girl who has 2 paths set out for her. She's either going to be like a housewife, or she's a housewife? she's either going to get married or she's going to go into the military, and apparently she chooses a different path, but then in that path she buys a slave which, you know, is a choice, okay? Certainly. And then I think she falls in love with the man she buys. And you know, the concept itself is certainly a choice, but I've heard really good things about the series and I'm still really interested in reading it. So I think I'll be the judge of that. I've heard this is really political, which is something that I've really enjoyed in like The Cruel Prince, which I feel like the first and second book were really politically heavy and you had a lot of like intrigue and stuff. So that's what I originally chose this book. It's kind of controversial, so we'll see how that goes, but I'm still excited about this. Hopefully it'll be 5 stars. Let's move on to some standalones. The next book I have is Swear on This Life by Renee Carlino. This is a book that I've had for a little while, and I think this is more of like a new adult, maybe a little bit like an adult romance about this girl who reads this story and she realizes it's really similar to a relationship she's had in the past, and it's kind of the story of them either reconnecting or her trying to find him or trying to figure out if it's really about her. And that concept itself is really fun to me. Like, I feel like it could be a really cute story. It has great reviews on Goodreads, which is something that I feel like I don't see a lot in new adult or even adult romance, and I'm just really excited about it overall. And I just think it'll be 5 stars because I've been really enjoying romances that have like a bigger plot, and this seems to also be maybe like hate to love or second chance romance or something like that, and that's something I've also found that I've been really enjoying lately. So that's gonna be the first standalone that I think will be 5 stars that I plan on reading in the upcoming year. Moving on to a more classic pick, I have The Unexpected Everything by Morgan Matson. I chose this Morgan Matson book in particular because this deals with the daughter of a political figure that has recently gone through a scandal, and she feels like she had this perfect life and now it's all kind of crumbling down around her. I recently read More Than We Can Tell by Bridget Kemmerer, and that kind of dealt with a similar topic of the main character having like a really perfect life and then his dad did something pretty controversial and pretty awful, and it kind of brought down his life a lot. So I really love that book. I gave that 5 stars, so I figured this would have similar themes and I thought I'd really enjoy it for that aspect. And it's Morgan Matson. I've read one of her other books. I read Amy and Roger's Happy Detour, and it wasn't my favorite, but I know her later books have gotten better. So this is pretty big too, which is certainly a lot for a contemporary, but I've heard a lot of great things and I'm excited to read it. I think it'll be 5 stars because I really do like Morgan Matson's writing, and I think this topic will be something that I really enjoy reading. The next book I have is a pure fluff YA contemporary romance. There seems to be some sort of intrigue or drama in the synopsis, but really it seems like it's going to be pretty fluffy, and that is Wanderlost by Jen Malone. The reason I picked this is because it seems not similar, but The Phil and Boyfriend was kind of like, to me, like a pure fluff sort of book, and this seems kind of similar to that in the fact that the main aspect of this is romance. This tells the story of our main character who takes the place of her sister in leading a senior citizens trip through Europe after her sister did something that doesn't explain it. That's the underlying drama I was kind of hinting at. And so she's doing this trip and then something bad happens, and the owner's son of this company that she's like working for to do the trip shows up, and they kind of have like a romance, I assume, but it's taking place in Europe, which I thought would be fun. I've never been, and I've heard semi-good things about this. I don't think it has the best star rating on Goodreads, but I think Haley from Haley and Bookland recently really loved this, I believe, but I'm really excited for this. Like I said, I like to include a one like fluff book because I feel like they're really fun to read and they're really easy to read, and I do tend to give them 5 stars if I really enjoy them, obviously, because they're just so like heartwarming and cuddly, and sometimes they're just really what you need. So Wanderlost by Jen Malone. The next book I have is another genre that I don't really touch on a lot, but I've heard nothing but good things, and I've just had this on my TBR forever, and that is This Is Our Story by Ashley Elston. This tells the story of these 5 boys who went on a camping trip and only 4 of them came back, and that's kind of like the underlying case of this book, but it really follows the main character who is working at the DA's office as an intern, so she's relatively young, either high school or college, I'm not entirely sure, and she becomes obsessed with this case, and she wants to find out who killed this boy. Was it one of the boys? Was it somebody different? Because I think the boys don't really talk about it in this case. It's kind of been shoved under the rug, and it's kind of her following that story, and is there a killer on the loose? What's going on? And I've heard nothing but great things about this, and it has really good reviews for being a YA mystery thriller, so I'm really excited for this. This is a genre that I want to get more into, and this plotline really seems like it'd be something I like because it has a mix of thriller, but it also has like a YA main character, and it seems a lot more mystery than thriller, which is sometimes better for me because while a thriller is really fast-paced, sometimes I enjoy the mystery aspect of a book more, and that's what I end up giving 5 stars about it. So with that said, this is our story by Ashley Elston. Hopefully a 5-star read. Next up, we have a book that I haven't heard much about since it came out, and that is Nice Try, Jane Sinner. And this follows a main character who is in community college, which is relatively around the same age as me, and she auditions and is part of this sort of Big Brother like reality television show that takes place within her community college or her junior college. And I've been craving to read a nice like college like YA sort of story, I guess, like not just like a new adult romance, just like a story that follows a new adult character. So I thought this would be really fun. I like Big Brother. I haven't watched it in a really long time, but I generally like reality TV shows. I've been watching The Circle. I've been obsessed with that. I felt like this would be a really fun book, and I've seen really great reviews for it as well, and I feel like I'd really just enjoy the perspective of a new adult character. The next book I have is a standalone fantasy-like book, which is something that you don't get very often and something that I felt I would really enjoy, and that is The Forbidden Wish by Jessica Corey. This is a sort of Aladdin retelling. In fact, that the main love interest is Aladdin, but the main character, I think, or the girl in this book, is actually a genie, and she comes out of the bottle, I guess, and she is like indebted to Aladdin, but then they start to have some sort of romance, and there's like people coming after her, and the king is giving her offers, but she's kind of falling in love with Aladdin, and it sounds like so much fun. And this once again is a book that has really fantastic reviews and something that I've had my eyes on forever, and I'm so excited about this because once again, pretty short, standalone, and that's just something that I feel like you don't get very often, and something I'm really looking for as I try to break down my TBR and read books that are still fantasy, still a genre I really love, but I don't have to spend 10 million hours, 10 million days catching up on a series. So really excited for this one, and this is probably gonna be at the top of my TBR. I'm so excited about it. And finally, I have a book that I don't think I've ever seen anyone talk about on BookTube, and that is Torn Away by Jennifer Brown. This tells the story of this girl whose town is completely destroyed by a tornado, and she moves in with a new family, or just like distant family in a different place, and she's kind of just discovering, can she be herself without her town, and what really matters to her. So it's a coming of age story, but I really liked like the darker contemporary feel of like having this really big tragedy and seeing how she comes to terms with it. And that's not something I read very often. I very often read contemporary romance, very fluffy, or at least the romance is the main aspect, but this doesn't mention anything of romance in the synopsis, and I thought this would be a good way to test if I like this genre or read more from it in the future as I try to maybe read a little bit less fluffy books, even though there's nothing wrong with just reading fluff. It's literally like your own choice what you read. I really would like to try to find different genres that I enjoy. I felt like this would be a 5-star for me because it still has a lot of like deep rooted character arc and like you learning about like a coming of age story, which I tend to enjoy in like some of Bridget Kemmener's work. And while it doesn't specifically mention a romance, it still has a lot of aspects that I really love in other romances that I've read, and you know, it might still have a romance, it probably will, honestly, and I just felt like it'd be really great to read this and hopefully love it. So that is all the books I have to share with you today. 10 predicted 5-star reads. Pretty nervous about it because I am trying to be more stubborn with my 5 stars this year, because there was a lot of books last year that I, at the end of the year when I was making my list, I was like, yeah, I totally like these 10 books way more than the other 10 books I gave 5 stars, and that kind of like rubbed me the wrong way, I guess. And not even that it like rubbed me the wrong way, but I think it was just like a shock to have like so many varying degrees of like the same star rating. And I think that's hard too, because obviously you're gonna have your favorite books of all time, you're still gonna have 5 stars, but yeah. So thank you guys so much for watching. I can't wait to update you when I read all of these, and you might see some of these in some future videos that I have planned, so I'm really excited. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I will see you very soon. Bye!